Hello everyone, TimeToGrind here, and today I wanted to talk about something that has been fascinating me the last couple of days, and it is the announcement that the Global Speedrunning Association has announced the first competitive speedrunning event. It's slated for April 2019. It's going to have Super Mario 64, Super Mario Odyssey, Celeste, and there's going to be prize pools for each of them. And for me, looking at it just first glance when it popped up in my Reddit thread, I thought it was a pretty cool thing. I was like, oh, okay, that's awesome. For the most part, I really don't speedrun at all. I dabbled with the Borderlands 2 co-op speedrun for a little bit. It was very fun, but it was short-lived. And for the most part, I don't really watch too many speedrunning things. I'm subscribed to a lot of YouTubers like Summoning Salt that make good general videos about speedrunning and a bunch of different games and compiling into short videos, and I love stuff like that. And every now and then I'll watch a full speedrun just because I'm like, hey, Battle for Bikini Bottom, I used to play that game as a kid. What does it look like when it's being speedrun? And I watch Shift. I love him on Twitch. Shout out to him. But it's crazy to watch, and it's so fun. It's like, okay, well, Portal 2, I played that game when I was younger. What does that look like when someone speedruns it? And it's fascinating to me. But overall, I kind of just hop from game to game to game, and I watch them just one time and see what it's like. And I'm like, okay, that's awesome. But I'm not super into speedrunning. I mean, there are people that watch every single speedrun for a specific game and then try to speedrun themselves. And one of my friends, Bluto, he speedruns Super Mario Sunshine, and that's his game, and he just plays it over and over and over and over, and he's super hardcore into it. So obviously, my perspective is from completely a casual speedrunning fan. I didn't really, for the most part, speedrun any games. But that's what makes this so fascinating to me, because this issue has been super polarizing. You have people like me that originally thought, okay, well, this is just a pretty good thing, because anytime there's this small niche community, a lot of the times if people are trying to make it bigger or more popular, you're like, okay, cool, we're going to get some validation. All these speedrunners that have put so much time and effort, maybe they'll be recognized. Maybe they can make a bunch more money with the prize pools. If you're speedrunning Celeste anyways, you might as well go compete in it and, have fun and make money. So it kind of seemed just like a net positive for me, looking outwards. And there was a speedrunner by the name of Oddbod, and he is one of the highest ranked speedrunners for Celeste. And Celeste, like I said, is one of the games being ran in the event. And he put out a huge post talking about a lot of the issues he had with things like this and people trying to turn speedrunning into an eSports. And he talks a lot. I'll link to it in the description down below. It's a twit longer. And I want to talk about two of the main issues that he and a lot of other, high-level speedrunners have been talking about. And the first one is something that I feel like most people can agree on, and anytime something starts to get more and more popular and there's more money involved, there's a lot more ways for something to be really, really shady and scummy with, black markets, gambling. With CSGO, you had all the gambling sites like that, and it wasn't really anything to do with CSGO. You had the knives, you had the economy and stuff like that, and that was caused by CSGO, but they didn't really do anything that they didn't try to help the gambling aspect of it. They didn't ask for the gambling to come to their game. The gambling sites came to their game because the game was popular. And so there's already starting to see these betting sites that are sponsoring both GSA, which is the Global Speedrunning Association, which is what we're talking about today, and then also Speed Gaming. So we're already starting to see these betting sites, trying to sponsor and try to get into these things like that, and it's a really shady thing to do. And you can easily just say, okay, we're not going to take any sponsorships, we're not going to take any money, we're not going to do any advertising, anything like that for betting sites. But overall, it doesn't seem like they're attempting to do that, because we've already had betting sites sponsoring both GSA and Speed Gaming, and that's really scary. And that's something that kind of just happens with, anytime something starts to get more popular. So you have a whole issue with that. You have people saying, speedrunning is supposed to just be this small kind of community thing just for people that care about it. It's not supposed to be infected with all these gambling things and all this stuff like that. So that's one big important point on why a lot of people are skeptical. And the other thing that I found was really interesting, the point that I think is the most interesting in this whole argument, is the fact that, like I said, speedrunning is overall a very community-driven thing. Obviously, you have leaderboards, and there is a ton of competition, and you have people in some categories and in some games, constantly trying to beat each other's world records, and, they're constantly beating each other by a couple seconds, and they're shaving it off, and there's this whole competition and everything like that. But underneath everything like that, you have the whole community coming together to figure out how to best run the game, because, you have to have video proof most of the time. during a live stream of you running a game. So if the world record for a random game, I don't know, we'll just say Celeste, I don't know, I don't really know too much about the speedrunning in it, but let's just say there's a new category and the world record for the new category on Celeste is 5 hours, okay? And that's the world record. And I go and I beat it by an hour. My world record is 4 hours, so I beat it by a solid hour. Well, I'm not going to have the world record slot for a long period of time, even though I beat it for a while, because there's video footage of how I shaved an hour off of the world record, and people will analyze it, and they'll talk about it in the Discord channels. I've been a part of it for a little bit. When I was attempting to do the Borderlands 2 co-op speedrunning, I was part of this, I joined this public Discord channel that was for speedrunning all of the Borderlands games. And there was a guide that I actually watched. It was by Amilos. I can't remember the two people, but there was a big guide for how to do co-op speedrunning in Borderlands 2. And the people that made it were in the Discord, and they were answering people's questions. I asked a couple questions. People answered it to me. I mean, people were so nice. It was this whole community thing of how, because obviously you have the competition, you have the leaderboards, you're trying to see who is the best at running Celeste. But for the most part, it's kind of a personal thing too, especially if you're not one of those best players, because you're trying to just improve your personal best. And obviously, at some point, you'd like to compete to try to have, the world record or somewhere on the top 5 or 10, of the spots. But for the longest period of time, until you get really good, you're kind of just trying to compete with yourself. You're constantly trying to improve yourself, and it's this whole community thing. And a really good point is when there's being money put into it, and it's more just than, the world records and stuff like that. When you have money on the line, if you discover some secret, maybe you don't want to tell anybody, because if you're going to win $5,000 of a prize pool, you're not going to want to tell anybody about that secret. You're not going to want to tell anybody. You're just going to hold it. You're maybe not even going to have the world record, because maybe you have this super secret tech and it shaves whole hours or minutes off of a run. You might not even show people. You might hold it off until the event happens, so then you can guaranteed win the event, and there you go. And then people will be able to analyze and stuff like that. But it just delays, and it overall hurts the community feel towards speedrunning, because that defeats the whole purpose. When you have, say, competitive Melee, and you discover a secret tech or something like that. Obviously Melee's been out for a while, so there's a lot less that can be discovered, but if you discover some cool strategy or something like that, overall you're not going to tell people, because you want to go perform well in a tournament, and then that's the way it is. That's how esports work. When there's a huge cool new CSGO strat or Rainbow Six strat, they're not going to tell many people. They're going to save it for an event, and that's just kind of the way esports work, and it's been widely accepted, because why would they share their secrets? But with speedrunning, the whole point of speedrunning is to have this community-driven thing, and having stuff like that really hurts it. And there's a lot more points that these people talk about, and I will link to the main twit longer by Oddbod that I found fascinating. But overall, I want to ask you guys what you think about it, because on one hand, I think it is a pretty fascinating thing. I think depending on how it's done, if it's done well, I think it could be really cool. It could be, how we have these summer games done quick, and all of those SGDCs or whatever they are, those speedrunning events that are for charity. I know there's a lot of controversy with them, but they're fun to watch, for what they are. And I think it could just be more public, ways to see speedrunning, because speedrunning is really cool, and I think it does deserve to be a little more mainstream. But maybe trying to turn it into an esport is not the way to do it. Maybe we try to, focus more on maybe a network of a bunch of different, Twitch and YouTubers that make speedrunning content, and maybe they try to make this whole show around speedrunning. Maybe there's a lot more ways to, introduce speedrunning into the public domain, and maybe esports is just not the way forward, even though it seems like it'd be a good fit at first. But overall, I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on it. And especially when you're giving me your opinion, let me know what your experience with speedrunning is. Are you kind of just somebody that's not too into speedrunning like me? Or are you someone that actually doesn't even watch speedruns at all? Or are you someone that maybe is a super big speedrunner into a certain game, or you watch speedruns for a specific game a lot? Let me know in the comments down below what you think and kind of where your speedrunning expertise comes from, if at all. But overall, if you enjoyed this video, then consider leaving a like down below and subscribing to see more content. New videos come out every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. And like always, guys, I hope you guys have a great rest of the day.